Okay, where are we? So, right, in the chapter The Coming of the King of Africa, you explain how the British were compromised by the chaos of the fall of the Western Roman Empire and the ensuing conflicts between the British and Roman emperors for control of Gaul. However, Wilson and Blackett wrote about a comet that hit Britain in the middle of the 6th century, causing great devastation. Is there any evidence for this catastrophe? And if there is, why isn't it being investigated by geologists and meteoritics? Yeah.
There's huge debate about this.
There's no mention of it in the book you just showed me, I noticed.
Which book?
The Anglo-Saxon Chronicles, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and we were looking at that time period.
Yes. This is all to do with the Yellow Plague.
Yeah.
And there are mentions about the Yellow Plague or a plague.
Right.
And you certainly find them in the lives of the saints.
Okay.
About how it dragged along the valley and anyone who came in contact with it would die. And it's a story also of Maelgwn Gwynedd, who was a Pendragon after Arthur, looking through a keyhole, and the plague came through the keyhole. He was hiding in a church, he was looking through the keyhole and caught the plague through the keyhole. It's probably mythical, but there is debate there, and we know from tree rings that there was a cosmic winter around that time, 7 years of no lack of growth.
Yeah.
Now, the archaeologists, I think Barry Cunliffe was one of them, in Belfast, would that be? Alan was, I don't trust him. But they would claim that it was caused by a volcanic eruption.
Oh, okay.
Perhaps in Iceland or something. We've seen what that can do.
Yes.
Alternatively, a comet fall. I talked to Victor Klube about this, who was a professor at Oxford at that time. He's retired now, he lives in France, I believe. But he'd done a lot of research on near-Earth asteroids. Because most of the asteroid belt is between Mars and Jupiter.
Yes, and Jupiter blocks off a lot of meteorites, doesn't it?
And it's my belief that the asteroid belt is the remains of a planet that was there.
Yeah.
And I'll show you why.
Okay.
Oh, I'm full of things here, aren't I? Hold your hand out.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's heavy.
That's an iron meteorite.
Wow, that's really heavy.
Now,
I wouldn't fancy this coming down from space and hitting me on the head. Wow.
And that, well, you wouldn't fancy any kind of meteorite.
Well, true,
this is an iron meteorite. We know from Earth that iron is in the centre of planets. You don't, if these small fragments of the asteroid belt just form from dust that was left over from the formation of the solar system and just sort of agglomerated into small chunks, they wouldn't make this,
Yeah.
That is from the centre of a planet.
Wow.
A big lump of iron like that. And there's loads of iron meteorites. It's not, so I believe that meteorite, that planet blew up. Was it the Death Star that zapped it? Or was it some natural cause? Was it hit by something? Was it more likely probably some kind of electrical thing?
Okay.
But anyway, that planet blew up. And what we see is the asteroid belt and also the comets. Now, until recently, people on television like Brian Cox would come along and tell you, well, we know what comets are. They're lumps of ice, floating around, dirty snowball.
Wasn't he a pop star, Brian Cox?
Yeah, I think he was. Yeah, he should still be. Yeah. Well, every time they sent a spacecraft to rendezvous with a planet, a comet, or an asteroid, A, they look very similar, and B, they're made of rock. They're not a dirty snowball.
Yeah.
However you look at it, the tail that comes off it is to do with electricity, and it's to do with the difference in the electricity of the outer solar system, which is more negatively charged, compared with the inner solar system. It causes like a lighting up of plasma, like a plasma tube.
Right, okay.
Yeah, that's the electric force
that's interesting.
moving along with it. So all these fragments are remains, and so when they say there's not enough stuff left in the asteroid belt for it to be a planet, no, a lot of it ended up out making Oort clouds elsewhere, or else maybe it crashed into Jupiter or the Sun, or Mars is, really damaged. Look at the Moon,
Yes,
so there's been a lot of impacting craters around. Something happened to this solar system and it lost a planet. So that's what I think about that. And was it a comet? Well, maybe a huge chunk fell on Wales or fell near it. I don't know.
Okay.
But that certainly was Alan's opinion.
Yeah, I've heard that the comet we're talking about came in from the north of Britain, and also hit, I think it was Bolivia in South America.
Yeah.
So it caught us, but it carried on causing problems elsewhere in the world.
Well, Alan was certainly, he certainly believed in that, and that there had been a big drop in population because it caused a famine. And we know there must have been a famine because the tree rings tell us how there were 7 consecutive bad years, and there wouldn't be much food. And then in the saints' stories and things, they tell us how the only people who survived were those who were hunting game.
Right.
Or else they fled.
Right.
To get away from the yellow plague.
Yeah.
That came with it.
Fascinating stuff. Okay. So while you have changed your opinion on Arthur 1 for the most part, you're still very much in agreement with Wilson and Blackett on Arthur 2, the son of Murig. So can you tell us what sort of a king this Arthur was, and if his story aligns with the legends and mythology of King Arthur?
I think that is very likely. I think the battle of, Arthur's supposed to have fought 12 battles, but most of those battles take place in the north of England or in Scotland.
Right.
Yeah, if you really go into it.
Right.
That Alan didn't like that, but that other people think that very, very clearly. And you have the whole thing about Reged and the poem. What's it? The poem of the Knights or whatever it is. They quote, a big defeat of the Britons that happened up north.
Right.
And so I see that as being those battles up north are being connected with the first Arthur, who I think was this guy
Anton.
No, it's not Anton. I don't think Anton has anything to do with it. But I think this one who was connected with Uther Pendragon and
yes,
Aurelius.
Aurelius, yeah.
He was probably the son of the Duke of Cornwall, in my opinion, in truth, but they pretended he was the son of Uther by this magic, Merlin had done it.
There's a guy called Guy of Warwick as well, isn't there? Who's quite an interesting character when it comes to Arthurian stuff.
Yeah, I don't know much about him, but I've heard the name. Anyway, I believe that the Arthur II probably fought the Battle of Baden, but on the Mystic Hill, right? Yeah. The one that Alan talks about, and he was a good leader. But I believe that his main thing that was so great was he is the one who established the Round Table, right? And the whole chivalry thing, and based in Caerleon. Yeah. I mean, they talk about the other Lodge Hill place near Cardiff as being Camelot. I think Camelot was Caerleon myself. Right, okay. Because you've got that big amphitheatre there.
Yeah, I've seen it, yeah.
Which I think is the Round Table. Okay. Yeah, a table just means a flat area. And all the knights could gather there, all their family, they can have a big ceremony. It's a festival on Whitsun every year. Yeah. Sit down and eat together. Doesn't mean it had a big wooden table for them all to sit around. They were there, and they probably had all sorts of games and a bit of dueling and I don't know, riding horses and charging each other with lances, all that probably. Meanwhile, that was the plenary court of Arthur, which meant that was when he's going to discuss business for the kingdom that year.
Right.
What we're going to do, you know, the pesky Saxons have been creeping up there. We've got to do something about it. Because the rest of the year, they're out in their own territories, you know, running their castles or whatever they had, rescuing maidens and whatever. Then they'll come there for the plenary court once a year. So I think that took place in Caerleon myself.
I think you could be right there. I've seen the place, and it just has that kind of ambience that you know there's been some serious history.
And also, if I were Arthur, I know Alan Bowen loved that big hill fort above it, and I could see that at time of attack you might go up there. But I think for day-to-day living, you prefer to be living in the Romano-British town where you've got baths, you know, probably restaurants. There's you know, probably all the things that go with soldiers enjoy, I won't say anymore, in the town. You know?
Table tennis,
Yeah, bit of table tennis, who knows what.
Brilliant, okay. Right, okay, we're coming close to the end now. In the final chapter called The Dynasty of the Holy Grail, you state that the King's List of Owain is an important document in understanding the Joseph of Arimathea connection to Britain. Can you elaborate on this, and can you tell us about the wife of Beli the Great, who would seem to be the key character in all of this?
Yeah, so you have to be clear about who you're calling Beli the Great, right? There's a Beli the Great from the London area who was the father, I think, of Lud.
That's the guy that I thought I was talking about.
No. That's much earlier.
Okay.
The Beli we're talking about is the brother of Guiderius, or Ruaid, at the time of Claudius. So,
so we're going 50 to 100 years further ahead,
So this Beli, who's mentioned in some of in the Triads particularly, after the Romans defeated the Britons in Essex, your part of the world, probably at Colchester, I think, and then they built a temple there and big statue of Claudius, and they made that.
They made him a god, didn't they?
Yeah, because you know he's the guy. You know, he's Britain. He did better than Julius Caesar did. Only because he brought elephants with him. The poor Britons, they never had chariots. You know, with their ponies. Ponies see these elephants. Oh, they all start rearing up. People throwing off their chariots and trampled on. Anyway, Beli. In the Triads, it tells us about retinues, famous retinues, and there was a retinue of Beli from the London area, who came with his retinue and put himself under the command of Caractacus to carry on the fight. Yeah. So this is the Beli, I think, who married Anna, because it's around that time.
It is, the time's right.
So he carried on the fight. And he's Arvi Regus, I believe, because Arvus means ploughed land or lowland, Regus king of the ploughed land or lowland. England is the lowland.
Yes.
Yeah, he's come from the lowlands, you know, compared with Wales. So he's the king from there. He's come over to Caractacus, and probably when Caractacus was taken back to Rome, he probably carried on some kind of guerrilla thing. But I also think that he is connected with the palace at Chichester. Is it Fishbourne? Is that the one?
You could be right, yeah.
I'm not sure if it's Fishbourne is near here actually. But anyway, there's a huge palace there. It's the biggest palace, or the biggest Roman building complex north of Italy, you know. It was a gift to him, and one of the guys who's named on it, there's a tablet in the centre of Chichester that commemorates the building of a temple there. And you can't read it because it's outside the village, the town hall. They put it in a glass case, but they let the glass get so dirty you can't read this thing behind it. It's really annoying, but you can get a leaflet about it, and it tells us that this temple was built by Pudens, and
Rufus Pudens.
Yes. He came over with Aulus. You know, with the Romans at that time, and that's where he would have met his British wife,
Right. Yeah.
daughter of Caractacus, because they were taken.
Claudia. Gladys. Yeah.
Yeah, Gladys Claudia.
Yeah.
And they established the church, or their house became a church. It's now the Church of St. Praxedes.
Yes.
No, Potentiana, sorry, it's the Church of St. Potentiana on the Esquiline Hill. I've been there.
Have you?
Yes.
Right, yeah. What was that like?
Fantastic.
I bet.
And the other place, St. Praxedes or Praxide, just round the corner, near this horrible great basilica they built later. But this really charming church, full of mosaics. And underneath it, there's a catacomb under it. These girls used to bury the martyrs.
Really?
Yes,
right, okay.
That's the history.
Because all their children were martyred, weren't they?
Yes.
Yeah.
And they were too.
Yeah, and they were too, yeah.
So their tombs are in there.
Yeah, Timothy and...
Yes. And all these people, and there's 13 popes buried there.
Wow. Okay.
And that was the Church of Potentiana, where they lived, was the original Cathedral of Rome.
Yeah.
But Constantine changed it. What is now the Church of St. John Lateran, which is the Cathedral for Rome now, not St. Peter's, by the way.
Yes, the Vatican, yeah.
It's not the Vatican, it's St. John's Lateran. They took a table from this old church and they turned into a church, St. John's Lateran, what had been an army barracks. So knocked that down, built a church there. And that became the Cathedral of Rome. Wow. But this is much earlier. And the atmosphere in these little churches from the foundations of Christianity, you can see. When I went into Praxedes, which was the Palatium Britannicum, was there, they'd obviously been doing some excavating in there.
Wow.
And they'd stuck things up. There's a little area just near the door where they stuck bits and pieces they dug up.
Yeah.
And among these was a green man head.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's not Roman.
No, it's not Christian either.
Not Christian.
Yeah.
But,
that's interesting, yeah.
It's still being continued, you know, because the green man with the oak leaves coming out of his mouth represents God in the Celtic tradition.
Fascinating. What do you think about Linus? Linus was, most people say, was the brother of Claudia. And he was the first or second Bishop of Rome.
Yes.
Depending on whether you believe that Peter was.
Even academic historians agree with that.
Well, the Linus was the first Bishop of Rome.
Yes.
Okay.
Because there were two churches.
Yeah.
There was a Jewish church and there was a Gentile church.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that
so
makes sense.
That's where Linus comes in.
Oh, okay,
Clemens and so on.
But I mean, officially speaking, if you Wikipedia Linus, they'll tell you he's Italian, or he was Italian.
Yeah, well,
but he was Claudia's brother.
Descended from Pudens.
Yeah.
So Pudens was Roman. So,
well, I think some people say that Linus was actually the brother of Claudia rather than the son. So if he was the brother, then he could be. Anyway,
I don't know that much, but I've been there, and if you ever go to Rome,
I've been to Rome, but I don't think I went there. I went
it's
to Rome when I was.
beaten track. It's a bit hard to get.
I don't think
they've only got 2 metro lines. You get out, there's a particular stop, and then you have to walk up the hill to get there.
Yeah,
but it's
well worth it.
It's worth doing.
If I go back, that's definitely something I'll do.